For 12 a.m., August 12, 2025, a Russian ammunition convoy, composed of more than 15 trucks laden with artillery shells, explosives, and fuel, escorted by 6 armored vehicles, crept slowly through the dense forest near Kupiansk, a vital artery in the Eastern Front supply network. This wasn't just a logistical run. It was a calculated risk, a bold attempt to deliver a massive resupply to frontline Russian forces without being detected. Moscow believed the forested route would shield the convoy from Ukrainian surveillance. They were confident. What they didn't realize was that Ukrainian forces were watching. Every wheel rotation, every gear shift, every heat signature, all tracked, a response was coming. Small, silent, and devastating, a swarm of FPV drones ready to strike with pinpoint precision. What followed wasn't merely an ambush. It was a chilling demonstration of the invisible dominance modern warfare can unleash, a message etched in fire and smoke. A tactical masterstroke that would echo across command centers and battlefield maps alike. This is the untold story of how low-cost FPV drones transformed a heavily armed convoy into a smoldering wreck, a fiery graveyard on wheels, and delivered a stark warning to Russia. What really happened when the sky unleashed a silent storm of destruction? Keep your eyes on the screen. The truth is just beginning to unfold. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let us know your thoughts on this battle in the shadowy stillness near Kupiansk. A damp morning mist clung to the treetops. The forest whispered in the darkness as the convoy rumbled forward. 15 trucks, heavy with shells, fuel, and explosives, crawled through the trees, escorted by 6 MTLB armored carriers and a detachment of mechanized infantry. For the Russians aboard, this was just another resupply mission, routine and uneventful. Russian intelligence had declared the route secure. No Ukrainian units had been reported in the area, no drones, no signs of threat. That misplaced confidence lulled the soldiers into ease. Some leaned back on stacked crates, cigarettes glowing. Faintly, their voices relaxed as they chatted like truckers on a late-night haul. But that fragile peace shattered in an instant. The lead MTLB rolled over a concealed dirt patch. Then a deafening explosion ripped through the silence. The earth convulsed, a plume of fire and shrapnel erupted into the night sky. The armored vehicle was lifted, twisted, and thrown sideways. Its tread snapped, its hull belched black smoke. Flames curled skyward, chaos erupted. Soldiers scrambled in every direction, shouting, stumbling, dragging the wounded from the wreckage as the forest echoed with confusion. They knew instantly, this wasn't a random mine. This was targeted, calculated. The blast was perfectly measured, enough to immobilize the lead vehicle, not annihilate it, to halt the convoy and trap it in place. High above, unseen by Russian eyes, a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone had been watching the entire time. For hours, it had tracked every truck, every soldier, every flicker of heat, every smoldering cigarette. It streamed infrared images and positional data back to a Ukrainian forward command post hidden deep within a camouflaged bunker. Inside, a dozen Ukrainian soldiers sat silently, eyes glued to flickering screens. They belonged to an elite FPV drone strike unit. All night they had waited, charging batteries, arming explosives, calibrating control signals. For these soldiers, each drone wasn't just a flying weapon, it was a force multiplier, a chance to shift the outcome of an entire front. Their commander, a quiet, focused captain in his 30s, gave the order, "Get ready, this is it." He knew the stakes. If the convoy reached Russian lines, it would fuel a massive artillery barrage that could obliterate Ukrainian defenses within hours. But if the convoy fell here, Russia's regional offensive would collapse. Time was now measured in seconds. Back on the road, Russian soldiers tried to regroup. Some tended to the wounded. Others pushed vehicles forward, desperate to break free of the trap, but every movement was seen, monitored in real time by cold electronic eyes. Miles away, in a forest clearing, Ukrainian drone operators silently lifted their FPVs by hand. The tiny machines hummed to life, propellers spun, signal, Lights blinked, then vanished into the mist. No noise, no light, just precise coordinates and programmed trajectories. The commander's voice was calm, almost a whisper. "They're in the kill zone. Launch." The bunker fell quiet again, save for the faint whirring of drones vanishing into the darkness. Above, outside, the forest road lay still. To the Russian soldiers, it was just another bend in the trail. But to the Ukrainians, it was already a sprung trap. The sky had turned against them. The drones were airborne. Back on the ground, Russian troops were visibly more alert. No longer at ease, they gripped their rifles tightly, scanning the trees. To scout, motorcycles were dispatched ahead, engines whining as they tore through leaves and brush to test the road ahead. They didn't get far. A sudden blast split the silence again, louder, hotter, closer. The forest floor erupted, pressure triggered. Explosives, hidden beneath loose foliage, sent shrapnel and fire into the air. The motorcycles vanished in the explosion, no trace left but smoke and twisted debris. Panic spread, trucks veered off the path. Troops dove out, weapons aimed in every direction, but there was nothing to shoot at. Just smoke, fire, the creeping sense of being watched. Not far from the blast, in a crumbling, abandoned house, a squad of Russian infantry had paused to rest. They thought they were hidden. But high above, a silent drone hovered, its camera zooming in on every window, every shadow in the command bunker. A Ukrainian sniper team watched via live feed. One soldier, rifle poised, locked in on a moving silhouette in the yard. His finger tightened on the trigger. "Hold fire," came the commander's voice. "Not yet, there's more coming." Tension filled the air. Minutes passed. The Russians began to emerge, gathering outside, voices carried, frustrated, confused, unaware they were under surveillance. In the weary morning air, tension hung thick like fog. The sniper's jaw clenched ready, steady but waiting. Below, the Russian soldiers began advancing toward the edge of the forest. The Ukrainian commander gave the signal. A single, sharp crack split the silence. One Russian soldier dropped instantly. His comrade cried out, dragging the lifeless body into cover. Their column faltered, one bullet, and chaos began to unravel. Deeper in the forest, to D7 to tanks. Halted, their heavy turrets turned, scanning the dense woods for a sign of the shooter. But as they paused, drone operators watched their outlines flicker on UAV screens. Targets acquired, a swarm of FPV drones launched sleek, lethal, relentless. They descended like steel bees, electric motors screaming, cameras jittering as they homed in. In moments, one FPV slammed into the flank of the lead T-72. The explosion ripped through its armor, hurling the turret skyward in a deafening blast. The second tank tried to reverse, but it was already too late. Another FPV darted in low, piercing its rear armor. A fireball erupted, consuming the crew and turning the tank into a scorched metal shell. Panic tore through the Russian convoy. Vehicles swerved, soldiers shouted, and the once orderly advance scattered into the thick undergrowth. Smoke rose in oily plumes, the acrid stench of burning diesel and rubber thick in the air. Under fire and disoriented, troops began clawing at the earth, digging makeshift trenches wherever they could. But they had stumbled directly into a pre-marked kill zone. High above, Ukrainian drones hovered like silent specters, tracking every movement. In a camouflaged command bunker, the Ukrainian captain watched the feeds with cold precision. "There. Trapped," he said quietly. FPV team prepared the first wave. No words were needed. Soldiers moved quickly, checking circuits, arming explosives, and prepping launch pads. Outside, the fog mingled with smoke. Russian engines rumbled in confusion, headlights flickering through the trees. None of them knew what was coming. The captain's voice came low through the comms. "Launch." The tiny rotor spun to life small, high-pitched whines cutting through the morning. The drones launched in waves, buzzing like angry hornets across the treetops. On screen, red target markers glowed as the FPVs closed in. The first drone dipped through a narrow canopy gap. Its camera shook with speed. Ahead, a truck packed with 150mm shells. For a split second, the driver's face came into view tense, eyes fixed on the mirror. Then white light, the screen flashed. The explosion turned the truck into a rolling inferno. Ammunition detonated in a chain reaction, hurling molten shrapnel through the forest. Russian soldiers dove for cover, screaming, stumbling as fragments from their own cargo tore through their ranks. Another FPV found an empty LB armored vehicle, shielding the convoy's flank. It dove fast. Desperate bursts of AK fire lit the air tracers, zipping past, but the drone struck true. A violent explosion ripped the hatch clean off. The crew was thrown out, bodies landing limp and burning in the brush. The chaos deepened. A third drone tore into a mobile comms unit, shredding its antenna and scrambling coordination. A fourth struck a fuel truck. Flames burst from its tank, fire spreading along the muddy path like a living thing. Explosions rolled through the trees, smoke boiled skyward. The forest glowed with fire like an artificial dawn. Russian soldiers couldn't shoot them down. These drones were too small, too fast, too many. Some dropped their weapons, fleeing into the woods, but the drones followed, inevitable, merciless. In the bunker, Ukrainian operators watched, eyes locked on screens. Suppressed cheers broke out with each successful strike. The convoy was disintegrating. In real time, vehicles burned, trees cracked. Lives ended in flashes of white and orange. In just under 20 minutes, nearly half the convoy was annihilated. 11 major explosions marked the forest floor, smoking craters and twisted wreckage strewn across a scorched battlefield. Charred bodies lay beside gutted vehicles. Survivors stumbled in shock or collapsed into the dirt, too broken to run. The Ukrainian commander didn't raise his voice. Calm, sharp. They haven't broken yet. Prepare the second wave. No hesitation. The FPV crews swapped batteries, rechecked wiring, and rearmed their drones. Outside, smoke still billowed across the treetops. Once again, the soft whir of propellers filled the air. Another firestorm was about to rain down. This was no longer just an ambush. It was a declaration, a brutal unveiling of modern warfare's new face. Where once artillery and armor dominated, now cheap, lethal drones reap destruction with surgical cruelty. The Russian convoy, once a vital supply artery, was reduced to smoldering skeletons, blackened steel husks scattered over cracked and blooded soil. Yet a few trucks had survived damaged, but intact. Desperate Russian soldiers tried to drag them deeper into the forest, scavenging remaining ammo, trying to continue their mission. Others dug trenches in haste, patched the wounded, and whispered plans of retreat. Their faces streaked with soot, eyes filled with panic and defeat. But above them, unseen and unheard, Ukraine's steel bees were already circling again. The hunt wasn't over. Flight resumed. The second wave of FPV drones launched not to intimidate, but to finish the job. Their purpose was clear: destruction. The first FPV slammed into the mobile command vehicle. Antennas and comms gear flickered violently. A red fireball consumed the cabin, snapping the antenna in half and silencing all screens. Inside, the Russian officer was hurled into the wreckage before he could even scream. In a matter of seconds, the convoy's command structure was obliterated. The next drone zeroed in on the main ammunition trucks. One FPV pierced a tarp, detonating directly into a stockpile of 150mm shells. The explosion was massive. The shockwave ripped through the forest, snapping thick branches and throwing Russian soldiers from their trenches. Fire roared as a column of black smoke towered into the sky, so immense and violent, it looked like a miniature nuclear blast. Surrounding vehicles were tossed aside, some overturned by the shock. Fuel tanks burst, igniting into a chain of deafening explosions. Russian soldiers screamed, their voices lost in the chaos. Some tried to pull the wounded to safety, only to retreat in panic as secondary detonations erupted around them. The forest was transformed into an inferno, a place where metal and flesh were turned to ash. Above, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones watched and recorded everything. The footage was streamed in real time to Ukrainian command. Over 10 ammunition trucks were confirmed destroyed, now reduced to mangled steel skeletons. Armored vehicles smoldered, Russian soldiers scattered like ghosts through the smoke, fleeing into the tree line. In a nearby Ukrainian command post, young soldiers erupted in cheers. Some clasped hands, others let out cries of relief and pride. The captain remained calm, cold. "This is just one convoy," he said. "Every other will meet the same fate." His words lingered in the silence after the firestorm, a warning, not just to the men in that room, but to Moscow itself. By 7:35 a.m., smoke rose hundreds of feet into the air, visible for miles. The safe supply route was now a graveyard of twisted steel and scorched earth. A convoy worth tens of millions of dollars had been annihilated in less than an hour. In Kyiv, the general staff received the report, supply convoy destroyed. Mission accomplished, Ukraine